Welcome to the open air gallery here at the venue, and we're thrilled to be joined by our three featured artists this year: Janice Storch to my far right, Alice Hellwig next to her, and to my right, Heather Thomas. We would like to take this opportunity as a settler organization to acknowledge the traditional territories of the Niitsitapi, the Blackfoot, and the people of the Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta, which includes the Siksika, the Kainai, the Tsuut'ina, and the Stoney Nakoda First Nations, including the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Goodstoney First Nations. We would also like to acknowledge the Otipemisiwak government of the Métis District 1. The venue does not operate in isolation. It is supported by many different organizations and companies, donors and volunteers that make it all possible. And we'd like to give a big shout out specifically to Westcor, Lyle Reeves, and Foothills Energy for their roles in making the open air gallery possible. So the theme this year was High River as Home. And we had a number of applications from across the community and across the region. And our selection committee, which included Lori Kohler and Dawn Ham, a local artist, and Councillor Kathy Cooey, selected these three fine artists. Janice, you saw High River as Home. Where did your brain go?
Thanks, Russell. So when I heard the theme of High River as Home and how that ties to my art practice of photography, I thought, what do I have that I've taken pictures of that represent High River as a home? And a large part of my online sales is always to former residents of High River and my black and white series of all the monuments and the buildings around the town. And I thought, well, if they used to live here and they're buying pictures of the things that remind them of home, then the buildings must signify home to them. So that became my basis for my my submission. And then I thought to take the theme of home further and view the walls of the venue as somebody's home. And how do you decorate a home? You can have useful art or you can have decorative art. How can you use photography to decorate your home? And so I came up with the idea of bunting, which is kind of a fun way to decorate either the inside of your home or the outside of your home in the summertime. So I thought, well, let's make some fabric bunting. You can also have useful art. If you're hosting people in your home like the venue does and you have a bar, you can have cocktail napkins. And so then I explored the way of getting my pictures onto cocktail napkins. My art this year is all very consumable to be non-existent by the end of the year. Same with the bunting, and I want to explore what the bunting is going to look like as it ages over the summer. So it's intentionally very raw. There's no perfect hems, there's strings all over everything. It's some of it might even be a little crooked, but the intention is I want to see it decay. If we don't take care of our home, if we don't take care of the buildings in our home, upgrades and things, these buildings will decay and then we lose our home. So that's kind of where I want that art to kind of weather and fade as if we didn't look after it.
In the bunting and on the cocktail napkins are 10 buildings, because you grew up here largely?
Yeah.
Which building do you have the strongest emotional connection to?
Be the museum. It's a beautiful building. My grandmother, my maternal grandmother, was also a volunteer there when I was a really young child. And I would go, I remember on Saturdays or whenever she'd be volunteering, I could go and hang out at the museum and we'd play. And I remember sitting on a saddle, maybe we weren't supposed to. But I remember spending a lot of time there with my grandma. And so I would say that's probably the building that I have the biggest connection to in that series. But yeah, they divided the building in half and half went to Claire's home and half came here. So that's my understanding of the history of it anyway. So.
Thank you, Janice. Has a series of banners on the left side that represents sky. Now, Alice is from Calgary. What connection do you have to High River, if any, and how did you, as a non-resident of High River, respond to that theme?
So for me, when I saw, High River is home, I'm a prairie girl, and I grew up in Lethbridge. I started painting in the coulees when I was 12, and I've just always loved the sky. I love taking something that's very tangible, like materials and paint and texture, and building up the surface and making something, very gas like the clouds. But when I'm painting at the easel, I can't help but think about what is community. How do we build community? We're all under the same skies. How do we choose to spend our time? How do we reach out to other people? How do we create that community? How do we have compassion for each other? For me, was a broader question of how are we united under our skies?
Alice is a plein air painter, and for anybody that doesn't know what a plein air painter is, it's when you go out in the world and you paint what you see. Done plein air of skies?
Yeah, they change a lot, so you have to kind of set in your mind what you like about it and then keep that intention. And sometimes something better comes along, but you try not to chase the light because you can just keep going and going. So you reach a moment where you go, yes, that's what I want.
What drew you to the ones that you picked?
So the first one that says community is the color. I'm in love with cottonwood trees. I can remember my husband is from Ontario, and I was going on about the trees, and he goes, "I've got to take you to show you some real trees." And yeah, those maple trees are wonderful, and the canopies are whole blocks. But there's just something about a cottonwood tree and how it stood all those years and years of drought, and it still, goes on. So I just love painting them. Blue sky, and in that one, that painting has a lot of texture in it. It's really, there's probably about at least 6 layers in that painting. So Heather and I were talking about surface and how we love building up surface and things. And so that has glass beads in it, it has modeling paste. You're kind of fighting the texture in it, but I like that fight, that paint fight. The last one again was the color. Golden hour in the prairie where the light comes and hits the prairie and just makes it so beautiful, and that orange against the blue sky.
Well, they're beautiful. Thank you, Alice. We have the sky that we all share, and then Heather, how did you respond to the theme, and how did you come up with this beautiful presentation?
My triptych is on the right side of the venue, and I thought of High River as home. The one thing that everybody seems to talk about, think about, and relate to is the river. I decided to bring the river through all 3 of the paintings and emphasize bodies of water specifically within the general downtown area. And you'll notice that I'm an abstract artist, so it's not a literal representation of High River, it's blending of zones, a blending of areas of play and work and live and field. Essence of what is home. So if you have a chance to look at the originals and feel them, they're really bumpy and scale-like, and you can catch a bit of that in the reproductions as well. Base layer of sludge. I recycle our paint water, turn it into a mud-like sludge, and then I coat the canvases with this sludge, and when it dries, it creates cracks. It's like crackle paste. The reason why I filter the water in the first place is because I don't want it to go into the river.
I find it fascinating the fact that it's abstract, but some person came into the studio one day and said, "Oh, there's my house." Thank you, Heather. You have a real blend of High River as home, the buildings that really have defined generations of families. Talk about the specific choices again.
Sure. So if I can remember all 10, Carlson's.
Which was what originally?
The post office.
Okay.
And then it was the town office. Statue downtown, the museum, St. Benedict's Church, Superman House, the Bell Tower up at the fire hall, the Hitching Post, Wales Theatre, Bitsy School, no, just the Monroe Barn with the water tower.
As a photographer, I'm curious, what is your creative process when you're just photographing for yourself?
And so yeah, it's kind of all of those things. So some days I'll be driving down a country road and I'll think, oh, look at all those flowers in the ditch. So then all of a sudden I get lost and I spend 3 hours sitting on an anthill photographing flowers in a ditch, and everybody drives by and thinks, what's that lady doing? I might go look for eagles. My friends and I will do fun challenge where we'll be like, okay, everybody gets a color and you have to come up with 24 pictures of orange, or yours is red or yours is green. So we'll challenge each other to do those kinds of things. And then 2, some of it is capturing the history of my town, making sure I've got photos of all the buildings, as they're in development or as they're being torn down, or capturing them before they are being torn down so that we don't lose that history. Also gone around at Christmas time this year, I noticed how many people had really amazing wreaths on their front doors, and I did a whole series capturing people's front doors with their wreaths. So kind of depends on what strikes my mood that day. This summer, it's a lot easier to take pictures after work, so I do purposely, in my office job, work very early so that I can get off kind of early in the midday. So I put in long days, but that's intentional so that I do have time after work. I can go out to Frank Lake at 7 o'clock in the evening and spend a couple hours with birds and come back with 300 photos and be, get the itch out of the camera for the day kind of thing. The 9 to 5 pays the bills. The 6 to 12 keeps the art and the passion.
Verdun, do you have a favorite photograph that you've ever taken?
I think probably is a photo of my dear friend Carol. One year at her branding, they were bringing the pears down out of the hills, and all the cowboys were riding with the cows and the calves as they were traveling along, and there was one straggling calf, and thick green spring grass out in the foothills, and this calf just couldn't do it anymore. And Carol, in her cowboy hat and her western attire with her gold-colored horse, kneels down beside the calf. And I captured that moment, and it was an honorable mention at the Calgary Stampede a few years ago, and I've blown up the picture and given it to Carol, and it hangs in her house, and I called it Caretaker, Protector, Provider. Ranchers really do care for those animals, and it just showed the compassion that they feel for them, the heart and soul of the rancher going into their livelihood.
Both emotion and story and personal connection. So thank you for that. So building from that, Alice, you've been painting a few years. You probably have quite a few in your archive. What's your favorite?
Do you know, I always used to say it's the next one, because as a painter, there's a little in you that says it's not quite where I want it to be. And so you're always pushing yourself. And so a lot of times when I look at older work, I'm like, oh, I paint that. You know, some friends, sometimes you go to their house and they have your paintings and you're like, I would change that. But I do have one that I've kept that's of Coutts. It's a really smoky day. And they have plein air sessions where you can go to Nanton and paint out at Coutts. It's one of my favorite places to paint. And there were only about 4 of us because it was smoky, no one came. They have the poppy fields out there, and usually you're fighting for a spot by the poppy fields, but we were all by ourselves, and that painting just fell in place, and yeah, that's one I keep. So there's very few I make a point of keeping. A lot of times I'm happy that they're gone and sold and out the door so I can get more paint and do it again.
When is a painting finished?
Oh my gosh, so I've been with different galleries, and I know one, I used to drive her crazy because she'd have the painting for a while and then she'd send it home and I'd repaint it. And then she'd get a call from someone because it was haunting them, and I'm like, oh, that painting's gone because it's underneath this other one. Now that I don't varnish them until I know that for sure they're heading out the door. Sometimes they have to sit for a while and you look at them and you go, oh, that's what that painting needs.
Is perfection the enemy of art?
Do you know, my old boss, Corey Stanton, I worked for the city, and she had a little saying up, and it said perfectionist is, you know, exactly that is the enemy. It can be, because if you know that you're never going to get the light how you see it. It's never going to be the same, because paint and light are 2 different things. And so we can get close to it, but it's never going to be exactly like that. And you hear of painters who just give up and say, okay, that's it. But I'm always curious about where it's going to lead and what's going to happen. And I know that my skills are so much better. My understanding of how paint works is so much better than when I started.
Thank you, Alice. I've known Heather a long time. She, her dad was an art teacher in high school, and I think passed along some things to Heather. But during the evacuation of the Fort McMurray fire, she got to spend some time with a friend of ours named Stan, who's an abstract artist, and she took to abstract painting. And I asked you this question, but what of all those beautiful abstracts, what is the one that your heart goes to as, okay, that's my favorite?
So it's the one that we probably won't ever sell. It sits in our dining room. It's 5 feet by 6 feet, the biggest one I've ever done, and I love it. It is white and gold and nickel azo kind of colors. Where they discontinued it, bone black, and that's it. Just the three colors. I used a lot of texture on that one. I pressed texture medium through an onion skin bag, or an onion bag, so it was bumpy like snake skin, and super cool, and lots of drips, big bold black marks, and it looks like a butterfly. So metamorphosis.
I've seen a lot of parents that bring their kids into galleries, and they're very good about saying, don't touch it, but you encourage people to touch your paintings.
They're varnished. It's okay. You can touch it. if somebody's got dirty hands, jam on their hands, just wipe it off with a little water or Windex or mild soap or something. Part of the joy of my work especially is to touch the original work, because it's so bumpy and textural, and that's another element outside of the 2D, right? So you can bring in the feeling of the painting instead of just looking at it.
I always talk to the kids about the fact that I've never considered my paintings, I can only speak for myself, as precious objects. To me, they're a conduit between a person, a viewer, and a memory or an emotion, and to not be afraid of them. And you definitely do that with yours.
Thank you.
You love people touching them. Heather, something about your art practice or your process that might surprise people.
I don't paint every day. I often paint over my paintings. The way I know when it's done or when I can't go further is that I can't think of anything else to add to it. And so that's when I know it's either done or it has to sit for a while. I add a dot. And that's it.
I've seen that dot a couple of times. How about you, Alice?
Yeah, I don't know what to say. I'm looking at Heather and nodding because, yeah, it's true. I also teach art, so a lot of new ideas come from teaching, and I absolutely love that. Paintings I have there, they're funny little cats that are knitting, so they're really silly, but they started from Vermeer. So a study of Vermeer and learning that he does black and white underneath. My color work starts with black and white paintings, which is odd, but then when you glaze into them, you get a depth of color. And so a lot of times I know when people look at them, they go, oh yeah, you love color, and they think it's really direct color, but it's not. It's a building up of layer after layer.
Janice, what might surprise people?
For the thousands and thousands and thousands of photos that I've taken, for the vast majority of them, the photo is not just a photo. You all see the 4 sides, but when I see that photo, it contains memories, it contains smells and sounds, and I can sometimes remember whether I was standing or kneeling or laying down. Maybe what I was wearing, whether it was hot, whether it was cold. You know, I can probably almost drive you to the exact location I took the photo. It's like when the shutter clicks, there's something that just stops it in the brain, and I think that's probably people don't realize. They just see the 4 that's in the frame, but they don't see the 360. I used to be paid to be a high volume photographer, so I had contracts with sporting associations, and so you're literally shooting thousands of photos in a single day because it's high volume, you're catching action. If I'm creating for myself, I don't usually shoot high speed. So it's a very intentional process. I might go home with 18 photos of the exact same pink flower, and to anybody else, they kind of look the same, but it's like, oh no, that leaf moved, so that's not a good picture. Oh, that's where the leaf should be, that's where I like it, sort of thing. So I'll maybe take those 18 photos and keep one. I think my latest camera takes something like 54 frames per second or something. So,
And then how do you stop yourself from being in the editing vortex and being lost in hours and hours of editing?
culling can take a while.
In your case, that inspiring and just get your juices going. Heather, what comes to mind for you?
Lori Mirabelli from Toronto. I can't even describe it. It's what I would like to be. She does a lot of layers, a lot of geometric shapes, lines, different colors, but abstract as well. And almost every painting she produces, I would love to have on my wall.
It's just incredible. How about you? We had this conversation, but I can't remember what your answer was.
I have a few. So historically, Constable is one of them, and one of the things that I love about his work is the pastoral scenes. And I just recently found out that I thought of it in a different way than how academics think about it. And it made sense, because when you stand in front of like the Hay Wain, it's not just a picture of the countryside, but it's of people's influence in the country. So you have the wagon, you have the fences, and that's been creeping more and more into my work. So I had some pieces that the gallery hated, but they were mountains. And when I go to the mountains, what I experience is construction. So I had cars and construction cones and campers driving through, and I find that's coming more and more into the work. But I think that's an influence from Constable. Sergeant is, you could go to England and you go to the National Gallery, and it became a game with my friend that we were traveling together, and she's also an artist. And you'd walk in a room and go, okay, where are the sergeants? There. And there's something that he does with portraiture. It's just so amazing and effortless. He was criticized during his lifetime for how he painted, his clever Frenchified way of painting. But he just makes like the perfect stroke, and it's just, and did watercolor, did painting on location, did portrait paintings, and sort of two of the main ones. And then I have a friend who is Ingrid Christensen, who does figures, and I'm just in awe of how she paints. She's just amazing. So I have a painting of hers. We did a trade, and it's of her son. And when you stand far back, you think, oh, she's got everything in there, and you go up to it, and it's just a couple of strokes, and that's the face, and it's just amazing. So
Janice was just at a photography conference in Saskatoon. Some photographers that I know from Fort McMurray were there with you, and I'm curious, in the photography world, who are the ones that you would love to aspire to or that inspire you? Are there a few?
I go completely against what you want me to say.
Oh, you're a politician, that's good.
Always wanted to be a painter. And I can't make my hand do what my brain sees, so I became a photographer. So a lot of my inspiration is from painters, because when I'm trying to come up with new concepts or I want to be inspired, I go to painting or I go to graphic design. Because if I could have had another career, it would have been in graphic design. I'm a very minimalistic photographer. A lot of my inspiration for that is from graphic design. And a lot of my love of abstract is from you painters. So I don't aspire to be a photographer other than my own self. Not that I think that it's because I'm the be-all end-all, but I can only be myself, and I can only be the best version of myself. So what I produce is how I see the world. But what inspires me is other forms of art, and I try and bring those into my photography.
Right where I want to go for the final question. Unbelievable. So as artists, we evolve, we change, at least I think we do. I have a secret website that has 900 paintings in chronological order, and it's stunning to look through the evolution and the change, and it's incremental, but there's no way I could go back and paint like I did 12 years ago. That I don't know what I'll be doing a year, 2, 3 years from now. The question to you is, what do you hope to be doing, or what do you sense that you might want to explore in the next couple of years artistically? Heather.
That's just a big blank for me. I don't have a forethought of what a painting is going to be. I might have an idea, but it never turns out how I want it to turn out or how I thought it should turn out. So I approach my work from a place of process and feeling. And it's the energetics of the canvas and the day and my body and whatever's floating around in the atmosphere that create the piece. So I don't know where I'll be in 5-10 years.
You may get excited about, you use a product in one of the paintings, glass beads,
Glass beads, yeah.
and where Heather has used onion bags and various things. Watching Heather work, there's been times when she'll work on a piece for months, honest to God, and it's just process. So I understand that. I get what you're saying. Anyway, thanks, Heather. Alice, how many years have you been painting? I haven't asked you.
I started when I was 12, so
Wow.
yeah, it's a long time.
Where are you heading?
It's exciting to see that change, as you said, but I find that the work is getting more and more abstract. I'm using more pattern. I've done that with the landscapes before, and collaged fabric into it and texture into it, and so that probably is going to come together again too. And I'm lucky because I also work for Liquitex, and I get all their new products they send to me to sample and try out, and so I've been doing a lot of playing with that, and some of it is not finished work, but you can see it's going to lead to something. So yeah, I don't know what yet.
Do you have a sense, having painted for so many years, of how many works you've done in those years?
I have
Any
no idea. I've destroyed probably more than are out there. That's something a lot of times people think as a painter, that everything you do is fantastic. And I do a lot of teaching, and that's the biggest thing you tell students is, everyone has paintings that face the wall and you go, that just didn't work. But to me, if you're always getting good work or work you're satisfied with, you're not pushing yourself. And it's the push that's interesting. It's that challenge of how far can you go, and sometimes you go too far painting, but I'm an acrylic painter, so you can always bring it back.
Sure.
and do something new. But that's part of the fun, is seeing how far can I go with this.
It's interesting, you're talking about Liquitex and new products. You go over to the photography, which is a technical thing, and the technology changes constantly. Does that excite you, or does that scare you?
Well, I'm not a gearhead, so it took me a long time to even understand what all the numbers on the lenses meant. With limited funds to keep my stuff somewhat current, but I'm also not into having the latest, greatest of everything. So I have probably 5 lenses that I use constantly. My very favorite lens I've had since 2013. It's old and it's fallen down a few cliffs, and it's still great. And it's my favorite lens. I tend not to follow the trends of technology.
In terms of your photography practice, is there something you're working towards, or you see yourself exploring more in the coming year?
A thing I've always really wanted to explore, and I haven't yet put it out into the world, so I guess maybe this is my opportunity, is I really want to use my photography in a project for good. So be it with a charity, in conjunction with a charity, to bring light to the work that they do, use my photography skills to tell their story, to help them. And so I'm just looking for that project to see what life brings in the next few years that I can throw myself behind and add my skills to.
Thank you so much. Let's give them all a big hand, everybody. We have Janice Storch, who has both the cocktail napkins and the bunting that's surrounding the venue. We have Alice Hellwig, that has her series of sky paintings, and then Heather's triptych of how the river flows through the community of High River. We're going to be up all through the summer summer season, which is fantastic, and we thank you for your contribution and for answering some interesting questions here today. Thank you to our small but dedicated audience, and especially this rowdy bunch in the front row. Thank you to Ola for capturing it so that we can share it on social media. We love Ola so much. And final thank you to the organizations Westcor, Lyle Reeves, and Foothills Energy for supporting this series, and thanks to the community. So have a great night and enjoy the open air gallery.